Welcome to Key Conversations, where you get to connect with the best of the music business, unlocking the secrets to exploding your music career, presented by In the Key of Success. I'm your host, Cheryl B. Engelhardt. The conversations you're about to hear are between our special guest and participants of my MX4 course, the Marketing and Branding, Money-Making, Mentorship Mastermind for Musicians. They are singers, songwriters, composers, producers, and artists just like you, asking their burning questions of our experts while transforming their careers over 6 weeks. If you think this could be you, check out mx4course.com to schedule a free half-hour coaching call with me to see if we'd be a good fit. So, let's get started. Today, I am super duper excited to have Chandler Coyle here with us today. He has over 40 years experience as a music fan, which would make you think he's like super old. He's not. I think he's been a fan since birth. So that's cool. He channels that experience of being a music fan into helping musicians grow an engaged fan base, making more money, and being able to spend more time creating and less time doing the business stuff. So he's like a perfect person to have on this podcast. So thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
And anyone that wants to check him out, it's chandlercoyle.com, and that's CHANDLER. Coyle is COYLE.com. And that's his personal brand site. And it links to marketing mailing list, the Coyle report. Chandler's also a professor. Do we call you Professor Chandler?
My students do, but instructor.
Okay. Instructor Chandler. I'm just going to call you Chandler for this podcast. Is that okay?
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I just want to kick it off by asking you where, you started off as a music fan. You are still a music fan. Where did you get to the point where you're like, I need to work in this music business, and here's how I'm going to do it? Were there certain, milestones that you look back on that were turning points in your career?
Yeah, I think there were like three points throughout my life. The first one was when I got turned on to music. I don't know when it happened, but we went from hearing music in the background or in our world with our parents were involved in musicals and listening to the radio. And then suddenly my brother and I were spending every week at a used record store, taking music lessons and doing that type of stuff. And I ended up, so that was like getting into music, and it was obsessive. It was all day, every day, both of us. I went to Syracuse University's music industry program for a couple semesters. And at that moment, I realized I was more interested in the business side of music than the making side. I was just, and this was in the 80s, back before websites and everything. So
the 1880s?
Yeah, the 1880s, very old.
Mm-hmm.
But so I switched actually to business, and the music industry back then, you didn't really want to enter it, or at least it was for the faint of heart. You ended up in the mailroom. So I focused on marketing and logistics, and music was always a side thing. I would help bands. I would play in bands occasionally post-college and do that stuff. And the industry thinks Napster is a bad thing, whereas Napster was a good thing for me because it led me to start to notice where my skills in technology and marketing could basically directly help artists who in the past would be like, well, you don't work for a label, I can't talk with you, or label would say you don't have 20 years experience, we don't want to work with you. So I quit a day job in 2010 and joined forces with my brother, who had founded this company called Music Geek Services, which is what I'm basically his digital guy, helping with all things digital pretty much. And we work on projects on and off. So I joined forces with him 7 years ago. And so those 3 points were basically like an obsession with music, an exit, and then a re-entry when the industry was, I would say, changing, or some people would say falling apart.
Yeah.
But I saw it as like, it was a disruption in the industry, and it brought people. My brother entered around that time too. He had been working for a label for a year, got laid off, and decided, well, I can help these people directly rather than through a label. So we both have been teaching at Berklee Online. I've been teaching there for 5 years, music marketing and general music business classes. So
very cool.
That's sort of my, attraction to music and where I got to where I am today, I'd say.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that the people that make the biggest difference, if they're not musicians who, like Ari Herstand and myself, who are actually in it, in the trenches, doing the work ourselves, and also trying to give back to the musician community and our past versions of ourselves, if it's not that person, the next person I would trust is someone who is a huge music fan and obviously has the business background. So it's so nice to hear that you're here to help musicians, but it's also because you just love music. It's not because
Right.
it's, you got laid off and we hear about so many like curmudgeon execs that just are like, okay, now what? Because the label model is just not working for everybody, for 98% of the people that are even on labels. So
Right.
Thank you for sharing that. That's cool. So I'm going to pass it off to the participants of this month's MX4 course, and they have done a little bit of research / stalking of you on the interweb and sort of have seen what you're up to, and they've got some questions for you, and we'll just go round robin until time runs out. So let's start with Paul, since he was nice and early. Make sure to unmute yourself, you guys, when it's your turn.
Can you come back to me? I'm still taking everything in.
Sure. Yeah,
we can figure out what I want to say. Thanks.
Perfect. All right, let's go. We'll go Gary. Gary, do you got anything for Chandler?
Yeah, it took me a minute to unmute. Hi, Chandler.
Hello.
I'm happy you're here with us. Thank you
Pleasure.
so much. One thing that I wanted to ask you was about graphic design work. What graphic design works best in marketing for an artist? Which elements do you think are a must for artists to consider when they wish to create an unforgettable brand or logo, a marketing presence? Right.
For me, the most important thing is professional photographs. So one thing I noticed about our host, Cheryl, when I first met her, was she had these like really just polished, whether a professional photographer or somebody, whoever took the photos, it was, a good setting, good lighting, things just looked pro. You see a lot of people with websites today or Facebook posts or one sheets or anything, and the photo just doesn't look crisp, polished. It can be retouched. I work with some artists who are like, wait, don't use that version. That's not the retouched version. That's fine. You want to just sort of present a professional image in graphics. The other thing to keep in mind with graphic design is you can do a lot yourself, but if you spend a little bit of money, you can get someone who could polish it. Maybe if you take a concept, like I work with Rachel Yamagata, and she'll sometimes hand draw something or even mock it up, and then I will polish it and before we put it out there. Don't be afraid to engage with someone who's better than you are, but be realistic with them and say, listen, I can't really afford you to do the whole job if you have the time to do it, and that sometimes will save on budget. But develop a relationship, especially with someone local. I like working with people who are willing, if you have someone local who's maybe doing graphic design for something outside of the music space, that's another thing. I see a lot of people doing print work and magazine work, and I get inspiration from that when I do graphic design. So don't just think in the music space. You might have a neighbor who's a graphic design wizard. They can even teach you some stuff.
Cool.
That's my recommendation.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a great question, and I love the photo thing. It is really important, and I think the photos you were looking at, I have a couple friends that are actually photographers. One's a wedding photographer, but she's got a great eye. She's done a lot of my shoots.
Right.
The ones that are in New York City, I had a friend and his girlfriend who's actually a stylist. She came on and just joined for a really low rate, just because we were all sort of friends, and she helped pick out the clothes and stuff. And I always think I think I'm good at that, but for, to tack on an extra $100 to get a completely different perspective other than my own. And she's like, that's not your brand. What are you talking about? Like she got me in a way that I would have never pictured myself in that dress or that outfit. So I think for, you can even get a friend that has a really good eye. You just love her Instagram or something. You can get them to come in. And a lot of photographers, my friends and even professional ones, will include retouching. Most photographers will take hundreds of photos. They'll get it down to maybe 20 that you get to choose 5 or 10 that they retouch. And so that, when you're talking to someone, it may not actually be an extra cost. It may be included.
Right.
And I think it's a really, really good investment, especially now that photos and videos are such an important part of social media. You're going to get more hits because you have some sort of video or photo attached.
Well, that brings up two interesting or important points are styling. Whether you're a guy or a gal or, a band or a solo artist, it's important just the look. The difference between a great photo and crappy clothes versus a great photo with like the clothes fit, the clothes make you look like a musical artist. The other thing, the retouching and stuff, it's important. And also with video, is sometimes what I found is a lot of photographers have the capability to take some video. Sometimes it's a good idea, just for B-roll in a pledge campaign, is to have as a music fan, I love to see what we'll say behind the scenes stuff. So if somebody's doing a photo shoot and they have the capability just to shoot some video, B-roll, maybe you getting styled or whatever, just to say, can I have that? Just send me the raw footage. You don't have to edit it.
Yeah.
Always be collecting, assets that you can use in your world.
That's my word. We were just starting to talk about assets. It sounds like such a corporate marketing word.
Content, assets. Yeah.
Yeah, just content, just the stuff that you use to pull people in that people want to see. So I love that. Awesome.
Cool.
Well, nice conversation starter, Gary. Thank you. Danny, got all the A's here today. Danny, do you have a question for Chandler? And I think I muted you. There you go.
Oh, I muted me back right when you unmuted me. Hey, Chandler, thanks for taking the time.
Hey, Danny.
Hey, I guess I just have, do you work specifically with social media or like with groups marketing, like on a whole?
I do pretty much everything. I'll use Rachel as an example just because she's been a longtime client. Rachel Yamagata. The things that I do for her in what we'll say the digital space, or like I build her website, I polish her socials, I'll take over her socials when she's too busy, I'll guide her on some things, we'll look at analytics. I don't necessarily believe that artists that even at her level or above should hire someone to do all their socials, because you lose the human conversation aspect. Social media, maybe creating the assets, like getting someone to create stuff, maybe the header and the profile photo and guide someone. But it's not that much time. You're usually sitting somewhere, and you can just bring your fans or your audience into your world by using Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever your social media is. But if you're hoping to get more traction, you could hire someone who might say, here's where you're missing opportunities, or maybe if you were a little bit less broadcasty and more conversational, it might come off better. The thing that I notice with most artists is they're probably posting less than they should. Like if you think you're posting too much, what you might be doing is just posting like buy my album, pledge on my campaign or whatever, too much. But I never see artists posting too much. You can't really post too much on Twitter because it's a constant feed. Mm-hmm. Facebook, you start to notice when your engagement and impressions goes down, you might be posting a little too much, but you're probably not using social media more than you should. You're probably using it less than you should. But yeah, I've during Rachel's busy period last year, she's just like, you need to handle the Facebook posts and I'll handle Twitter. Sometimes we'll divide and conquer. And if you're in a band, find who's strong. This advice goes for anyone, is like, if the drummer's really good at taking pictures, give him Instagram. If somebody's really good with clever, witty lines, give him Twitter. Someone loves to be on video, give him Snapchat or something like that. So divide and conquer.
That always makes me want to get a band. I'm like, one person on each. That's
yes.
A band.
Yeah. My brother works with Sloan a lot, and I've helped on a few projects, but they pretty much divide the socials up, the 4 guys in the band plus their manager.
That's it. I'm starting a band. We're not going to ever tour or write music together or play music, but we're just going to be a band.
Divide up the work.
Do social media. That's a genius.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good question, Danny. Thanks. Paul, should we still come back to you, or you got something to ask?
Hey, thanks for being here, Chandler. I appreciate your time.
Pleasure.
I was wondering if you can talk a bit about video editing. My band, we have a lot of fans that'll take cell phone videos and post them. And it's great for us because you get to see yourself live, but the quality is not always good.
Right.
Can you give some suggestions, or maybe some editing software that we can use, or can you talk a little bit about that?
What I recommend is encourage your fans to post stuff or even share directly. Sometimes you'll find out that there's a fan who's professional. Encourage him to bring equipment. Maybe let him come to sound check and he can set up early. I've watched bands do that. I actually, for 10 years, recorded audio of bands, and my favorite part was getting into sound check, setting up my equipment, hanging out with the band, and then giving them a recording the next day, a link to the recording or something. Well, what I've seen some bands do with video, in your case, there's what we'll call in the marketing world, user-generated content, UGC. Okay. That's video, and the audio is crappy. Maybe 10% of the video is a really good shot, but the rest is blurry. I've seen bands get permission to download that and marry it with audio that they have that they recorded. Like, always be recording. Like, if you can record your live show, especially off the board, or even better than that, like a room plus board mix, and just have that available, you can create these live videos of like, oh, we played an excellent version of that song, and a couple fans shot parts of the video. You can create a live music video with your audio and their video just by, playing around with it, syncing it, and maybe putting some other still shots in if they didn't record the whole song. But for editing, like I work with Rachel, she edits in iMovie. I edit in, is it ScreenFlow? It's meant for like tutorial videos. I don't know if Cheryl's familiar with it, but it's like, I don't use the Final Cut Pro or the Adobe Premiere. I find those A, too expensive, and B, too complex. I've done video editing in iMovie on a Mac, or I don't know if Camtasia maybe on a PC, but find a lower expense, or less expensive software, and get familiar with it. What I've found is, like, you can use more expensive software, but the concepts that you have are probably easily learned in cheaper software that you could apply. It's like, okay, like what Rachel does is she'll work in iMovie, and then she'll give me something and I'll bring it into my software. And we created an ad. She had an album, and we wanted to create I think it ended up being a 30-second trailer that we posted on Facebook as an ad. And it's like, she had video clips, and then I added like the album flying in, and then the text and stuff. So, but I wouldn't, some people look at the fan generated videos and say, oh, well, that's nice, there's nothing I can do with it. I think there is. These days you see people remixing videos, and you see sometimes like, artists telling fans, oh, I know, I had a student, she's a big star down in Colombia. Is it Colombia? Yeah. She's sort of like a junior Shakira, although she probably wouldn't want to hear me say that. But she had fans send in, I think Cheryl did this, fans sent in video clips, and they were able to put that in to a video, whether it was,
It's really cool. They could direct I did it on my song Moving Towards Love, and just send people the MP3. I sent my whole family. I was like, here's a song for free. Right. Post, send me your videos back. I'm going to credit you. And the other thing you can do is tell people to send people a track and have them film their next cat video to it. And then when they put it on YouTube and they monetize it, you can actually make a buck or two, because if your music is in the YouTube monetization algorithm library, which you can easily do with your music distribution company, CD Baby or TuneCore, or whoever you're signed with. But just to as an artist, I actually got my start in video editing company. Like, I was an intern. And so I know I have Final Cut. I used Final Cut. I'm good at it. I use iMovie now. It's so easy.
Right.
If I need to import anything, you can easily edit the audio. You can make really cool looking titles that are the templates are really great. I'm all about the easy stuff. Same thing with I use Photoshop. I know Photoshop, but now I use Canva online, which is free.
Right.
And there's so many different, I can code HTML, but I use Bandzoogle because they're template. I'm all about what's easier, what looks set up and professional out the gate. So iMovie is my go-to one. I think it's free when you get a Mac.
Yeah, it's free on a Mac. I'm just trying to think if PC has free. I don't know if there's a
Windows Media Player or something, or is that from 2002? I don't even know.
Yeah.
But
my default is, a lot of indie artists and students in my classes is what's free. And then at a certain point is where are you spinning your wheels? If it's taking you 5 hours to do something in iMovie that you could do in 1 hour in Final Cut Pro, maybe Adobe. Adobe has a great service where you can rent. You can sign up and get access to their software, all their software, or one piece of software for a monthly fee. I pay $50 a month to get access to Photoshop and Adobe Audition and InDesign and all that stuff. And anytime, the other day, I needed InDesign and I had never used it before, but I taught myself how to use it, and then I made some money making a one sheet for someone. Just applying those skills. So this same thing you could do with video editing is. Yeah. The other thing that some people worry about the sync, they're like, how do I sync up the sound? It's not that hard for parts, but just also remember, you've probably seen videos where you notice that it's not synced. Sometimes it doesn't matter for parts. If you got a shot of the lead singer and he's singing for 30 seconds and it's not synced, it'll look bad. But if it's just a moment, it doesn't necessarily matter. It's sort of does the video engage the viewer, and then so you're pulling in something and it might be a distant shot and it's close to the song, but don't obsess about it. Just I would create the asset or the content, and over time, I have a thing, see one, do one, teach one. If you're not doing, you're not practicing. And so get to a point where you start to help other people and you realize you're gaining skills, but do it first, observe, then do, and then you can teach. Cheryl, she was her own lab for a while and now she's teaching. And that's the same thing with me. I teach.
Definitely still my own lab.
Yeah.
lots of Frankenstein, shortcuts and trial and error over here, but
yeah.
No, that's a really good question. Video is so important. I think I heard some number fact in the marketing world at some marketing conference that if the video quality, the visual is terrible, but the audio is awesome, it's twice as likely to have someone watch it all the way through if it were reversed. So if the audio is bad, but the video looks amazing, people will be not interested. They'll click out. So I don't know if I'm explaining that well. So basically if you have good audio, and even if it's a phone video or it's a little shaky or it's pixelated, the audio is good. That actually matters more. So that the syncing thing is a really good idea to line it up. So we won't beat a dead horse, but you guys get it. Awesome. Okay, let's go back. I think we've got time to go around one more time. So, guys, think of your next question and we'll go next with Gary. Do you have another question for Chandler?
Oh, I have 5, so let me see which is the best one. Okay, I'm going to combine 2. I'm going to take 2. Okay, what is the common denominator of all of the services that Music Geek Services provides? The heart of what you do, and along with that is, what does every artist need to know is essential to their success? Because I think those two kind of go together probably.
Yeah. The heart of what we do and what my brother founded it on, and the work I do with him, is we always try to put ourselves in the head of the fan. We thinking like a fan. Everything that he does or I do is super serving the fan, thinking how is this going to be received by the fans? What do the fans want? We're not involved in the creation of music. We're not involved in the creation of optimizing your stage show and stagecraft. The assumption is that your art, the performance, that's taken care of by someone else or by yourself. But we know fans, and we know when I said over 40 years experience a fan, is I'm over 50, but I've spent, by my memory, 40 years obsessing about music. And so when the Beatles announce 50-year anniversary of Sgt. Pepper's, and you see the package they put together, as a fan, you're like, oh my God, this is awesome. So that's sort of the underlying aspect. And I think it's important for artists to think of their fans, think of their mailing list, every aspect, Facebook likes, Twitter followers, email list. A lot of times you get lost in the numbers. I have, 30,000 emails. I have 5,000 followers, but each of those are different levels of fans. And if you think of them as people and get to know the fans.
They're people? Wait, what?
Yeah.
People? Hold on.
There's something cool that FanBridge is, FanBridge analyzes your fans over time. And it was interesting to see when we signed up for FanBridge for Rachel, we moved from Topspin to FanBridge because Topspin just wasn't cutting it for us anymore in terms of a mailing list. We moved to FanBridge, and initially there's not a lot of data, but I noticed over time that FanBridge started tagging fans as super fans or casual fans. And I reviewed the list, and names started to pop out familiar to me. And I would recognize, oh, that's the people that are on Facebook and they're more engaged. Mm-hmm. So for an artist is get to know who are your most active and engaged fans, because they're essentially the virtual street team. They're the ambassadors. They're the word of mouth marketers. There's the concept that we try to generate within Music Geek Services is get more, word of mouth or get more buzz. A lot of artists hype too much. There's no such thing as over buzz, but an artist can't buzz on themselves. Buzz is essentially conversations out in the world about your art. You can spark buzz, and that's hype. Hype is promotion. You can overhype. That's a negative thing. If you're constantly saying, buy my album, listen to my music, you're overhyping. But when buzz takes off, and the ultimate buzz is viral, but that's rare. That's like a shooting star. But if you can give fans a reason to share or a desire to share, or give them opportunities to share, encourage them to share. When we send out emails or we do pledge updates, I always make sure at the bottom there's like a click to tweet or click to share on Facebook, share to Facebook, share on Twitter, encouraging and asking. What we noticed, an experiment that Rachel and I did in emails or Facebook or in emails, Facebook, and pledge, or even Twitter, we would always ask. Every once in a while we would ask. And when we asked, we saw a lot more retweets, a lot more shares on Facebook, a lot more clicks to tweet and stuff like that. When we didn't, we saw some, but a lot of artists are like, oh, I don't want to seem needy. But remember that the fans are people, and some of them don't want to support you financially because they can't afford to it, but they have a lot of time to film your concerts or just share your music. If you connect with fans, this is sort of actually I think this was a formula that Mike Masnick of Tech Dirt came up with it's probably been about 10 years, but he had two formulas. One was connect with fans, give them a reason to buy, and you'll make money. And then he also said, connect with fans and give them the reason to share, and they'll buzz about you. If you're not creating assets that you put out in the world as videos or whatever, they have no reason to really share your music, because listening to music is one thing, but then, fans want to go beyond. That's why Behind the Music was so popular as a series on MTV, is people really want to dig in. I just finished Robbie Robertson's memoir testimony last night. 500 pages of behind the scenes. It was, I couldn't put it down. So that at all levels, there's always at least one person who enjoys your art as much as I enjoy Robbie Robertson's art. There's always even at the lowest level or the smallest, the beginnings, there's usually someone you recognize coming to the shows. I'm sure, like if Paul's fans are filming and posting them online, that takes some effort, to do that. Or, they're putting their, what's the word, their social capital. There's like, I like this band, I'm putting it online. So pay attention to that.
It's not even just about bands too. I mean, I know that a lot of people are listening are either songwriters or composers or producers, and your fans don't necessarily need to be those people that are coming to shows, but they're also the people that will connect you with my brother-in-law's a licensing agent.
Right.
That's a thing that you need. Okay, cool. Like when you figure out what you want and then you're really clear on asking for it, like, hey, does anyone know anyone that works at this company or that has fans will also be fans of your career.
Yeah.
And I say that because I struggled with when I stopped touring full time. I was like, oh, what are my fans even going to be interested in? And I do a record every few years. Like, what is there? And I was like, oh, well, I'm doing all this other music stuff. I'm working, composing, blah, blah, blah. So it's like my fan list is now engaged with me. And the key word, I think, Chandler, that you said that we sort of glazed over, those two quotes that you said, connects and then connects.
Right.
Like, connect with the fan. The word is connect. So it's not like, I always say you don't want to be a billboard, like where no one connects with a billboard. You see it and then you pass it by. You're not connecting.
Right.
So social media as a billboard, then there's no connection.
Right. I always I have this rule that I teach my students at ABC, sort of taking off from Alec Baldwin's, whatever that movie, Always Be Closing. I always apply it to music. Always be conversing, always be collecting, always be creating, the C's, where if you treat social media like a conversation, at least 80% of your overall social media and day-to-day interactions, should be a conversation. Like Cheryl and I met on a panel, and it was initially a conversation. And at some point recently, I reached out and said, you did something that I want my brother to do. And she connected us. And then I
said, it's going to cost you. What do you got for me? That's what I said.
I will come on and be your guest. And I knew she had been doing this and had listened to some of these podcasts, but I call myself, I was called this by two good friends. And so I started using it on my Twitter, the connector, because I really enjoy connecting people. I recently connected Cheryl to someone, at the conference. I connect my brother to people all the time. I connect artists to people. And if you're constantly being helpful, usually you're like, how can you help me? I like to flip it on and just constantly be helpful, and it eventually comes back.
Yeah, especially if you don't have that ulterior motive. I think that next week in this course, it's a perfect lead into what we're going to be doing next week, which is all about pitching and how it's not about, hey, help me or help fund me or help do this. It's like, hey, I have an opportunity for you. And that's one of the hardest things in working with 100 plus musicians is it's really hard for us to see how we are an opportunity for someone else, because so much of our career is spent wanting something, needing money, needing connections. So to actually sit down and be like, how is this an opportunity for this venue booker? What is in it for them if they book me versus that band? And so we're going to dig into that hardcore next week. And it will make asking anything from anyone so much more effective. And it's sort of life-changing if you can really come from, I'm providing something. So I love that you do that anyway. And also that goes into your ABCs. Yours is always be Cupid.
Yeah.
Always be Cupid. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, always be Cheryl. I like it. I'm going to take.
Always be Cupid, always be Chandler, always be collecting.
Look at that with our C names. I love it.
Yeah. Well, then I introduced it to a guy named Charles. So yeah. And so, I think the thing that I always like to say is get out of your home office. Get out of your comfort zone, you just go out into the world and meet cool people like Cheryl at South by Southwest, which is very expensive. So some people can't do that. But in Chicago, there's a annual conference. A couple times I've one time with Dave Coyle from Bandzoogle, and
who's been a guest here.
Yeah. And so I'll go to that conference, which is free. You never know. There's always things going on that and I'm an introvert. I'm shy, and I would prefer to be at home with my wife and my cats. I would rather not be out in the world where I have to give my elevator pitch. But if you put yourself in those situations, you will meet people who will lead to things. So for composers, like people who work on jingles, people who are in a band, if out there and your name's out there, Ari Herstand is like, just follow him and watch him. He's constantly putting himself in situations that lead to other connections. So that's my recommendation for that.
Yeah, totally. And he's been interviewed, so go listen to his interview. It was a couple episodes ago, and he and I just had lunch last week in the city. It was really awesome. We're gonna take over the world, and it's gonna be amazing. You'll see. We'll stop right there for now. We will continue next week talking to Chandler. Lots more awesome tidbits and stuff that you guys definitely want to stick around and hear. So we will see you next week.
Please don't forget to rate and comment on iTunes and Stitcher Radio if you like this podcast. It's the best way to keep it going, get more subscribers, and continue to share this awesome information with the indie music community. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. All of the music on this podcast was provided by yours truly. The theme song is called Inevitably, and it was written with Cameron Ernst and produced by Joey Auk. If you're interested to find out more about my own composing and songwriting projects, go to cbemusic.com. If you're a musician looking to really get some results that you're psyched about in your music career, then head to inthekeyofsuccess.com, where I've created a bunch of different kinds of resources just for you. Key Conversations is sponsored in part by Bandzoogle. They make it easy to build a beautiful website for your music. Their step-by-step system gets you online in minutes, and you can choose from hundreds of mobile-friendly themes and customize them with their easy point-and-click editor. All the features you could possibly imagine for a professional website are built in. So, because you are a Key Conversations podcast listener, you get a special 3-month free trial just for you. Go to www.inthekeyofsuccess.com/resources and click on the Bandzoogle logo to access your free extended trial.